So the Masters starts today in Augusta. And this is obviously a big deal to people around here. You know, we're big golf people. This is a big Southern kind of, not going to call it a holiday, but this is an important deal for us. The Augusta Green Jackets, the minor league affiliate, single A of the Atlanta Braves, has azalea-themed jerseys that they are wearing to commemorate the Masters and everything. They'll do a whole weekend of it. What special Auburn thing would you ever like if the Auburn Tigers were to do some sort of special jersey to commemorate something in Auburn? What would be the thing that Auburn would wear, and what would they be commemorating?
That's a great question.
That's a tough one.
Yeah. I probably should have given you a heads up on this because it requires thinking.
All right, I got it.
Okay.
A blue jersey with rolls of toilet paper all over it.
That's a good one.
Or like a lemonade jersey.
Yeah, that'd be good too.
That would be, yeah. It kind of reminds me of MLB City Connect philosophy, right? How there's a special jersey designed to connect to that city and their heritage and everything. I could see the toilet paper, you know, like the logo on the caps, a glass of lemonade or something. I think that'd be really fun.
Or both. You have rolls of toilet paper and lemon wedges, both kind of intermixed throughout, interspersed, if you will. There you go. Throughout the uniform. Yeah.
I absolutely love the SAT word, Brad. I'm glad you're feeling better. You're This is the Barn Baseball Show, Thursday, April 10th. I'm Lindsay Crosby, joined by Sonny DeShera, Brad Law. We're here to break down LSU because the Auburn Tigers, as you do in the SEC, are welcoming in another top 5 program, as it feels like you have to do every single weekend, in the number 3 LSU Tigers. And Sonny, is there, at a certain point, this has to be a little bit frustrating, right? That it feels like every single week you get out of the frying pan and then go right back into the frying pan because you can't ever seem in conference play to get, I'm not going to call it a break, but to have like an easy weekend. It's a gauntlet every single week. At a certain point, as much as you want to face a top competition, you have to be like, man, can't we get like Missouri or something for a weekend?
No, seriously. Even Missouri, play Missouri on a weekend's tough. That's why you can't really compare any conference to the SEC because you just like this stretch Auburn's on. They just played Alabama last week. They got LSU now. I mean, they played Vanderbilt early in the year. They're top 15. And it's like, when does it stop? The answer is it doesn't. It doesn't stop. So it's just like, I mean, it's just like beating a dead horse. It just keeps coming and keeps coming. But that's why you want to play in the SEC. You don't want to be playing some scrubs.
Yeah. 16 of 19. That's the stat that's made its way around this week, is that once Sunday's game ends, Auburn will have played 16 of their last 19 games against ranked opponents. I kind of look at it this way, though. LSU is looking at its schedule, and it's like, all right, we just came off of Oklahoma, which is a ranked team, and now we got to go to a top 10 team. They gotta go to Auburn. They gotta come to Plainsman Park, where Auburn's coming off a series win over a top 10 team and a road win over a top 20 team in which they went back and forth, and they're playing with momentum, and they will have record-breaking crowds at Plainsman Park this weekend. Not that LSU hasn't played in tough environments, and not that this will be tougher than other environments they've played in, but they got to do the same thing. Auburn's schedule is a gauntlet. LSU's schedule is a gauntlet. That's just what you got. And there will be a lot of eyes on this series this weekend. This is a big one for both these teams.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And in way of kind of previewing this, I want to touch on some of the top storylines. Who do you think has a better series against their old team? Auburn starter Sam Dutton or LSU outfielder Chris Stanfield? Because I feel like after this weekend, you're going to have some opinions on who won the trade, right? So who do you think has a better weekend, Sam Dutton or Chris Stanfield?
I think Dutton's going to keep rolling, doing his thing. I don't even think he's probably not even really paying attention much that he's facing his old team because he's just pretty level-headed guy. So he's gonna go out there and roll it, I think. I mean, obviously Stanfield's gonna have 12 to 15 at-bats this weekend. So, if we keep him off at least a third of the time, I think we did a good job.
Yeah. He's their leading hitter right now in conference games. In 12 conference games, he's hitting .375. He has 8 doubles, which is twice as much as anybody else on the team in conference-only games. And so, but I agree with you, Sonny. I'm so impressed by Sam Dutton and what he has done, and especially inside Plainsman Park. 2 SEC series, both against ranked teams at home, and he's pitched 7 innings in both of those games. He has been absolutely lights out. And so I'm excited to see him. And let me, another thing about Sam, I don't know if we've discussed it on this show or not, but, the day after his start last week, and he did this after the Vanderbilt start too, I saw him the next day at the ballpark running stadium steps wearing a 50-pound weighted jacket. The day after, the day after a 7-inning complete game dominant effort. The guy is not content with what is happening. He's working to get better. His teammates see that. They see, man, it's a hot day. This guy's sweating like crazy. The day after, he just went out and helped carry us to a Game 1 win in this series over our arch rival, and he's not laying back. Dutton is as impressive a starter as we've had in several years here on the field, and for the work that he's continuing to do off the field. So give me Sam Dutton this weekend.
Yeah, it feels like from a strategy standpoint, Sam Dutton this year is more of a different player than he was at LSU versus Chris Stanfield this year versus last year, right? Yeah. Stanfield's doing things differently. He doesn't have a stolen base attempt in conference play, which is kind of outside what you think about who Chris Stanfield was as a player at Auburn. To something that Brad pointed out before we turned the mics on, not very many LSU players have even attempted more than 2. I think 2 guys have more than 2 stolen base attempts in conference play. That's not really their game. But outside of the stolen base element, Chris Stanfield is a guy that Auburn is familiar with because he's doing things the same way. He is better than he was last year. Players tend to get better from year to year, but he's that same guy. Sam Dutton has added pitches. He's changed the way that he pitches, his sequencing, his approach. Everything is different from the reliever at LSU to the not only starter, but to Brad's point, the impressive, dominant starter at Auburn. So he'll be your Game 1 guy. I like his ability to set the tone for the weekend. And I do think that it's going to be harder for LSU to know how to beat him than any other guy they've scouted, simply because he's not the same guy that he was last year. And I do think that helps you a lot in this regard.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be, he's going to go out there and just do his thing. With Stanfield too, no stolen bases. That's pretty surprising. But honestly, LSU doesn't really like to steal bases. They had Dylan Cruz there, and the guy's probably already stole more stolen bases in the MLB than he has his whole college career. They just don't do it. It's just they just want to hit home runs and hit doubles, and that's their game. I get it since the new coach came in. So
yeah, a little more than 1 stolen base attempt per game overall. And about 1 a game in SEC, but they just don't attempt that many. Yeah. You're right. So it's not their game. My question, guys, is offensively, can Auburn put it together against an LSU staff that has been, they've been fantastic in SEC play. The Cade Anderson effect for LSU, he's been so good in conference games, and he's been good throughout the year. But that's the big question to me is, can Auburn's offense manage more than about 4.5 runs a game is what they're giving up through conference play so far? Can you get a big inning? Can you get a couple of hits together? Can you string together 3-4 at bats in an inning and put a couple of runs up here and a couple of runs up there? They didn't give up an earned run last weekend against Oklahoma. So can the bats get it going early like they did against Alabama? 4 runs in the first, 2 in the second, to start that series, really set the tone. Can they do something similar this weekend against a better pitching staff than what they saw last weekend?
And I do think that the interesting kind of aspect, especially when it comes to Cade Anderson, Auburn leads the SEC in fewest strikeouts in conference play. They're drawing a ton of walks. They're not striking out a ton. Cade Anderson, 6 walks in 25 and 2/3 innings, 38 strikeouts. He is a starter after Butch Thompson's heart. Like he has been listening to Auburn's coaching on their pitching staff, pitches in the strike zone, not giving out free passes, and making guys beat you at the plate. And teams just haven't really been able to do it. 10 earned runs in 25 and 2/3 innings. And if I have that right, I think most of them, he's given it like 5 home runs. Like most of the runs have come off of that one big hit that you can get. Yep. Stringing together multiple stuff against him hasn't been a sustainable strategy. Given that context, Sonny, how big is Cooper McMurray getting kind of back into the groove of things against Georgia Tech, hitting that grand slam in the first inning? Real quick, does anybody remember in that Tuesday show who said Cooper McMurray was going to have a big game and how much that was going to help Auburn? Does anybody remember who that was? I don't remember who said that in the show.
Was that you, Lindsay?
That was me. That's right. That was me. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. That was me. Thank you. I couldn't remember, guys. Thank you. I had to prove it's not just Sonny and Brad that know ball in this show.
Don't pull a muscle patting yourself on the back, please.
Hey, if that gets Coop going, that gets him going. But no, that's big for him. That's big just to see one fly, especially a grand slam. I mean, in the first inning too, because it's not like we said they weren't playing some low tier mid major. They were playing a Power 5, and it's hopefully that gets them rolling. Yeah, on the road. Hopefully that gets them rolling.
Yeah, absolutely, kind of a big deal there. For the weekend, right? Cade Fisher, Sam Dutton. TBA is your third starter, right? As of time of recording, we don't know who it's going to be.
Yeah.
But given what we've seen in conference play and even against Georgia Tech from this pitching staff, does it feel like they have what it takes to keep LSU's bats in check? I feel like this isn't a team that's going to hit as many home runs as Georgia did, but they've got a lot of guys who can get on base, a lot of contact. They have 4 guys batting over 300 in conference play, another 3 guys batting over 275 or better. Feels like this is going to be you just need to contain these innings from being 4-run innings to being a 1 or a 2-run inning off of, 3-4 consecutive base hits.
Yeah, these are going to be some tight, like 5 to 6, 7 to 8 type ball games. Since LSU's starters are just so good, you gotta, like you said, we're leading the conference in striking out the least. I guess we have the least strikeouts in conference.
There you go.
So
I worded it weird. It's not just I worded it.
Yeah, I was about to say we're leading the conference in striking out the least. But I mean, we're just gonna have to see pitches. Like we need all their starters to be around 70 to 100 pitches within between the 4 to 6 innings. Just see pitches because I mean they're good. Cade Anderson's got that lively fastball that's just obviously it's working in the zone, so he doesn't have to expand. And it's just gonna be tough. They can hit too. Like I mean, if we throw strikes and they throw strikes, it's gonna be a really tight series. So it's just about expanding at bats and letting the at bats get long and seeing what we can do off their starters just to get to their bullpen.
Yeah, similar to the last couple of weeks. The east-west strike zone just doesn't exist, so you have to throw. You got to throw it in the strike zone, but you can't throw it over the middle of the plate, and that's why mixing your speeds, mixing your relative locations, trying to get swings and misses on breaking balls, it's going to be important. Not swinging and missing on breaking balls offensively on anything that's out of the zone, whether it's a high fastball or a breaking ball or whatever. Is going to be critical. It is kind of strength on strength. Auburn strikes out the least. LSU is averaging double-digit strikeouts a game in SEC play. Their pitchers have struck out 140 in 12 conference games. So they're getting the strikeout. Auburn hitters, can you put it in play? Can you make them? They're fielding a little better in the league than overall, about 980 or so. Man, these games just feel like they're going to be tight. They're going to come down to who's hit by a pitch and gets on base, who hits a 3-run homer instead of a solo homer, pass ball, wild pitch, sacrifice fly. Like these feel like on paper really, really tight ball games.
Yesterday we got one hit yesterday. The starter we faced was throwing 2 fastballs for a strike and 2 different breaking balls for a strike. And so, I mean, if you got 4 pitches for a strike, and not over the plate, like it's just tough. And that's what LSU's been so good at the past couple of years. They've also been good at hitting the home run. So if they can, if we can just limit guys getting on base, because they're going to hit home runs, it's just a matter of when and where, like the timely hitting we're saying. So that's not our game, right? We're not going to hit home runs. We're going to get on base and hit doubles, singles. So it's just going to be tight. I don't, there's no prediction for me. I have no idea.
You're going to have them by the end of the show. So just be ready.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
We're going to do it. We always do. Just be ready for it. Brad's going to go 2-1 once it's Alabama. He'll pick the sweep. And credit to Brad. You were 1 pitch to Justin LeBron away from nailing the sweep,
literally.
too.
Yeah.
One pitch to LeBron.
Yeah. I wouldn't have strained my muscles pointing that out on the show this week, but no, it was there. They had the opportunity. It took the best player. I mean, it took the RBI leader nationally to keep it from happening over the weekend.
Yep. Sometimes it just happens like that.
Another interesting note on LSU as I look at their pitching numbers, they're using an average of like 2+ guys per game in the league, and that's it. They have 2 guys with 3 saves, and they're both averaging better than or right around 3 innings per outing. So it's like they're trying to get 5 from their starter, and then maybe or 6 from their starter in Anderson's case. You get 6 from him, you go to the bullpen for 1 guy who gives you 3 innings, gets that power save, takes it home. They have 2 different guys doing that. They're really only having to, again, on average, this is not looking at all 12 box scores, which I'll do ahead of the weekend, but before doing that, this looks like there's only 1 game where they're trying to piece together a little here and a little there. That's pretty, and it's consistent in the stats. So that, I don't know, is that beneficial that now you can look and they've had 4 weekends and you can see their routine? And if you can figure one of those guys out, you can, throw down a rumble strip in the middle of their smooth path and try to make it difficult on them. I don't know, but they've been really good at that to this point.
I mean, that is crazy that they're using 2 guys a game. So obviously that should tell us that they're not confident in somebody else coming in. And obviously they will let their pitchers run. I mean, Cade Anderson threw 100 and whatever pitches in 9 innings the other day, 14 strikeouts. They just let him go. And so that's just the biggest thing, is just getting guys on base, making them throw pitches. And if you get to that second guy, all right, let's figure out who the third guy is, because nobody's seen it in a while.
Yeah.
That's the game plan.
The stats to back this for reference for those of you watching who aren't looking at the stat sheet. Zach Cowan, 5 appearances in the league, 14 2/3 innings, 3 saves. By the way, 21 strikeouts in 14 2/3. Kason Evans,
3 walks.
Yeah, 3 walks. Yeah, Kason Evans, 4 appearances, 13 1/3. So he's better than 3 innings per appearance. 5 walks, 20 strikeouts in 13 1/3. Those guys have 3 saves each. Between them, they've saved 6 of their 10 SEC wins.
So essentially, they're using 6 starters. Basically, they're using like 3 5-inning openers, and then 5 6-inning openers, and then 3 3-inning guys. Yeah. And there's no closer, no.
At least 2. Yeah, at least 2, 3.
Or at least two.
And then 1 they may have to piece together.
Yeah.
But that's how they've done it to this point. That's interesting.
It reminds me of some of the better Friday nights for Auburn, where Dutton goes 6 or 7, and then you throw 1 guy behind him who closes the game out, and you've got the whole pen available for Saturday, which has been good because you've had some double headers in the most recent Saturdays because of weather. Yeah. I haven't looked at the weather yet for this weekend. I don't think we're going to need. Gorgeous. Yeah. Thank goodness. It's Masters weekend. 2, it's A-Day weekend. So great crowds, like Brad said, great crowds. Should be great crowds in the ballpark. So definitely, if you're out and about, you want to come by, absolutely come by. And it feels like the situation there, like what Brad's talking about, with just 2 guys for an entire game. Auburn needs to find a way to try to disrupt that handoff from one to the other. I've heard from a lot of people around the league that one of the perceived weaknesses of this Auburn pitching staff It doesn't feel like there's much. One of the perceived weaknesses is when they're trying to pass the baton to the next guy, jumping on the new pitcher as soon as he's in the game, swinging early, ambushing first pitches, and really getting to that guy before he gets settled into a rhythm on the mound. And it feels like Auburn's going to need to maybe be a little more aggressive than they have been early when that new pitcher comes in. And then, to I think Sonny's point earlier, running up pitch counts on these starters so that you can hopefully break that tendency and make them use multiple guys in each one of these games. Nothing else, just to get into that pin so that by game 3, you're both piecing things together versus them still having the majority of their guys available.
Yeah, that's a good call. DJ Primo, 5 outings. He's given up 3 hits in 2 2/3 innings. They haven't left him in long. Connor Benj, 4 appearances, 7 hits in 4 innings, 3 home runs and 2 doubles allowed. Yeah. So, yeah, teams have done that to the guys that they are using multiple times in league play. This is not, I'm not looking at the guys who have had 2 appearances in 12 league games, but the guys who are getting it on average once a series, there are a couple there that have been vulnerable to this point. Yeah, I think you're right. Those are the guys you try to jump on everybody, but it kind of begs the question, are you aggressive, or are you a little more patient because you're trying to work pitches out of them? Does it matter that you get into them for a bunch of pitches if you're facing a starter that just threw 135? Do you get him out of the game by extending his outing by taking pitches, or do you get him out of there by knocking him around a little bit and making him question what he's got?
I think ideally you knock him around. It's just some of these guys, like a Cade Anderson, haven't been knocked around, right? You're asking to do things that maybe aren't. Most of these LSU pitchers, the starters, are averaging a hit per inning, right? And when some of them, Chase Shores, he's also walked 12. So, you have the ability to string together. He's going to glitch you, get multiple guys on base in an inning, and you have to cash that in. But, Cade Anderson, it's under a hit an inning. You do have 10 walks in 25 innings, but still, like, the goal is to batter anybody around. But I do think maybe being realistic going in and saying, hey, we've seen so many times this Auburn team, we've talked about it on the show, about how they just keep battling throughout a game and they never quit until it's over. I think at least one of these games, you're going to see a situation where it's still a low scoring game. And then when the starters are out on both sides is when it starts to open up, especially to the point is if you can knock out Anderson an inning early and they got to go to a guy like Connor Ware, who hasn't allowed a lot of runs, but he's walked, I think 3 in like 3 innings, right? Yeah. Can you get into some of these 1 inning guys that are the bridges between your back end long relief closer types and your starters? I think that's going to kind of be key here. I would assume, obviously you want to knock them around, but at the very least, right? We don't need to be allowing 6 pitch innings. I think that's kind of one of the death sentences here in this series, is if you let them get out of an inning without working too much.
Yeah, for sure.
And Sonny, how does, like, in the dugout, how are you trying to like balance that? Like, if you see, hey, it feels like this guy's throwing a lot of first pitch fastballs and we can jump on this, how do you balance the desire to do that with the understanding of we can't make this really easy on them? We need to make them work in every inning. Like, how do you walk that line?
Yeah, like maybe the first time through the lineup, if guys are just hopping on stuff and just not having success, all right, then, we tried it. After that, it's just kind of like, okay, make him throw pitches, like make him come to you type of thing. Like, look for one thing and one thing only. And if you don't get it, then you get out. So what? You weren't up there for 1 pitch. You might have been up there for 6 or 7 pitches, and you just keep the ball rolling like that. That's going to be the most important thing. But through that first time through the lineup, it's going to be, all right, go hop on and see if we can knock him in the teeth or whatnot. And so it'll just, and that'll set the tone for the whole weekend too. The first time through the lineup.
So it kind of evolves throughout the game as you approach it. Okay.
If Anderson comes out, he's starting Friday, correct?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we have like official announcts, but he started on Friday.
He started. Yeah.
He's a Friday night guy. Yeah.
He is. Yes. He like if he comes out and he just blows through the first 9 with 4 strikeouts on, he's got like 26 fastballs or something crazy. Like, okay, now let's just kind of battle, try to get something else, because obviously his heater is it's a tough pitch to hit because that's what he dominates with. And so maybe we try to just foul the heater and hit the off speed. It's going to be something like that. But getting game one is big. If you can show that you can take your Friday guy and just beat him up and win, that's just tough in the other dugout.
Yeah. Okay. Going into the weekend here, predictions by obviously record. We always like to go 2-1, except unless it's Alabama and it's Brad, which is, I get that. But also, if Auburn wins the series, who is their MVP? Because this is always a fun, I think, idea of what our thought processes are, and what is the most important thing in our minds based on who we pick. So who is the MVP for Auburn if they go 2-1 this weekend, or 3-0, or sweep,
I think it's got to be the pitching staff. I'm just going to go the whole pitching staff as a whole.
Sonny. That is the whole pitching staff. Pick a guy. Pick a guy.
Pick a guy.
Pick a guy.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, it's got to be Dutton. Dutton's got to do it again. He's got to set that tone on Friday because if you look at stuff wise, Dutton versus Anderson, it's just not even close, right? Anderson's just a power horse, and Dutton he's a pitcher. He throws all types of stuff, any types of counts, anywhere, and so Dutton's got to set that tone. Is his performance gonna be an MVP of the weekend? I don't know, but if he goes out and gives us 6. And he comes out with the game close or the lead, that's going to set the tone.
Yeah.
Brad?
Give me 2.
Okay.
And give me Bub Terrell. Bub didn't have a hit in the first 2 games of the Alabama series, but he had 3 in the finale, and he had another good game against Georgia Tech. So I think he keeps that going this weekend and comes up with a big hit into just a big hit. I don't know. We'll see. In 2 of those 3 games to help lift Auburn past LSU. Last time LSU was here at Plainsman Park, they had Paul Skeens, and he shoved on Friday night. I mean, he looked every bit of the phenom that he is on Friday.
Yep.
Auburn came back and won Saturday, ruled them on Sunday. So you're looking for a second straight home series win over a top 3 LSU program. And I think they get it this weekend.
I was also going to go Bub Terrell, so let me now pivot real quick. I've used it a few times now. Friend of the show, Chase Fralick. I feel like it's controlling the running game is not as big of a deal this weekend as it normally would be, and so I do think that there's a little bit mentally it does free you up a little bit to focus on some of the other smaller things, whether it's stealing extra strikes. The offensive side of the game. And I feel like while you're in this situation of Steele, Fralick, and Irish are all hitting well, you want to keep them all in the lineup. The best way to do that is to have Ike in the outfield still playing right and have Fralick behind the plate. I feel like he's going to he needs to have a good series at the plate. He just gives you a lot as far as he can flop sides, putting the ball in play. I think he's batting 3, right below 350 in conference play. And, only has 9 strikeouts. Not great. I do think a side thing here I thought about is Auburn has to avoid grounding into double plays this weekend because I don't think you're going to get very many opportunities to score runs. So you need to not lose that. And if I remember reading my notes right, LSU has not grounded into a lot of double plays in conference play. So you need to be better in that regard. Yeah. But that's my prediction. We'll be back early next week to kind of break down what happened, how right Brad and Sonny were in this. In the meantime, do us a favor, thebarnauburn.com. Sign up now, $25 off an annual sub. We've got all of our baseball notes in there. We'll have game threads for each one of these games. So hop in there as well as nuggets and things like that. Until next time, this has been the Barn Baseball Show.